Well, good evening, everybody.
Hi there, Al.
I feel like it's Groundhog's Day.
Yeah.
It has that feeling.
Sensation.
Yes, I feel it.
Lots of news today. We
lots
lost the governor of New York. Is there any? Can you believe that we lost Cuomo before we lost in impeachment?
I just
Trump?
think that
There's just some weirdness.
Al Franken's another one. He just stepped down,
I
did the right
think
thing.
that members of a certain party, do that. And
I saw the news
don't.
about the governor. I saw breaking news of governor resigns, and I thought DeSantis is gone. Wait,
You were wrong.
I was
Only
big
wishing.
time wrong. Well, welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news. It's 8 p.m. Tuesday, August 10th, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens, you will see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the Happening Out television network, Hotspots Magazine, and We Meg Events. Hotspots is celebrating 35 years of the LGBTQ plus experience. Merged, we bring you the best of LGBTQ plus news, entertainment, and support of our LGBTQ plus community.
This evening, we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ plus community from South Florida, America, and across our planet. I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson. Let's first up welcome anchor Aiyana Angeni Gonzales. She is the chairwoman of the prestigious Miami-Dade LGBTQ plus Advisory Board, the first transgender female to serve on a county board in the state of Florida. As a trans-identified female of color and a master's degree, she has a master's degree in social work. At Seasons Hospice and Palliative Care, she works. She also sits on the board for the Aqua Foundation for Women and for the and is here tonight. Good evening, Aiyana.
Hello, Al. It's so good to be here. Let's now welcome anchor Glen Weinzimer. Glen is the founder of the Smart Ride, the largest AIDS bicycle ride in the country and the only one of its size to give back 100% of funds raised to AIDS service organizations. He also owns Bona Italian restaurant, where they celebrate Give Back Mondays, where a large portion of all sales go to a different charity every week. Welcome, Glen.
Thank you so much. Let's welcome Cindy Brown. She is an icon in the LGBTQ plus community, original organizer of Miami AIDS Walk, the White Party for Care resource, and other major events. She has served as executive director of Miami-Dade Gay and Lesbian Chamber Foundation and LGBTQ Visitor Center. She is founding executive director of Miami Beach Pride and currently senior program manager for Jewish Community Services LGBTQ Lambda Living Program. Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you. It's great to be here with all of you tonight. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Tuesday, August 10th.
Well, let's begin by queering up the USA. Human Rights Campaign leader Alphonso David faces internal crisis of confidence over the Cuomo scandal. The Human Rights Campaign president, Alphonso David, went into the organization's weekly all-staff meeting last Tuesday triumphant, preparing to mark his 2-year anniversary, helming the country's largest LGBTQ plus organization with a splashy media campaign and the announcement of a new 5-year contract. But David's trajectory at the HRC has changed course over the tumultuous week after his name surfaced in an independent New York Attorney General report, finding that Democratic Governor Andrew Cuomo sexually harassed 11 women and retaliated against at least one for telling her story. David was one of several current and former Cuomo aides who engaged in a flurry of communication, that's a quote unquote from the Attorney General's office, to protect the governor as he faced his first public allegation of sexual harassment as his staff arranged to leak the accuser's private personnel file to the media and drafted a letter or an op-ed that impugned her credibility, the report found. Governor Cuomo has resigned this afternoon.
I find it really disappointing. You know, and I also feel that there are a lot of other elected officials that have a lot more accusations and issues, and they won't acknowledge them, they won't step down. I mean, and the fact that so many elected officials, men, feel that, you know,
Empowered.
they can just do it because they've never been disciplined for it.
And they feel empowered because of that, because nobody's taking action and speaking up other than the women. And then yet, let's take it even further, it's sending another message to the community that women should not speak up when they're being abused, when they're being victimized. Because when you do, this is the retaliation. They're correct. They are not wrong. We don't find them guilty. Yet the woman is made to look as the one who's the
bad guy.
The bad,
yeah,
instead of the victim.
The aggressor.
Well, I think there's a couple of things going on here. First, imagine this moment 12 months ago. Governor Cuomo was considered one of the heroes of America in pandemic.
Yes.
A year ago, and a year later, and this is where we're at. I think that is quite shocking. I was completely willing to give him the benefit of the doubt as this process unfolded, and still feel that way, and I'm sure much more is going to come of it. I'm saddened of his resignation without knowing the outcome yet of what the investigation is. So I give benefit of the doubt, innocent until proven guilty. But in that same vein, I have great disappointment for Alphonso, because as a person of color and LGBTQ, he sits in a seat that knows the rights of infringed minorities need to be unconditionally protected. That includes LGBT, that includes people of color, and that includes women. And if these allegations that are in this AG report are true, he has significant issue to answer for. However, let's not rush to judgment. The exact same observation that I make about Andrew Cuomo. Cuomo has made the decision to resign. We will see what Alphonso David says and does, and until whatever the process of justice takes place, I think we should not rush to judgment.
I totally agree with you. Next, let's queer up entertainment. Megan Thee Stallion says, it's about time music tackles homophobia. In a recent interview with People magazine, the Grammy-winning thought shit and WAP rapper and judge on HBO Max's ballroom competition Legendary opened up about the need for more acceptance when it comes to LGBTQ folks in the mainstream music, and how it's more important than ever for a reckoning to happen when it comes to the homophobia and hate that still plagues the industry. In the interview, she said, quote, It is about time. Representation is important, and it is really crucial for us all to have compassion and acceptance of every human being, end quote. Megan's comments come on the heels of controversy regarding fellow rapper and collaborator DaBaby, who rightfully received backlash after he recently made homophobic comments about those living with HIV/AIDS during his set of Miami's Rolling Loud Music Festival in July. Insanity again. Insanity, how these people are just allowing these slurs and these comments to just come and roll right out of their mouth.
I think that they've been happening for so long
Yes.
with nobody checking them. And now, which I think is fantastic,
Yes.
people are speaking up and checking them on this.
And
yes,
you
kudos
can't
to
just
her.
do this.
Yeah, kudos to her for bringing it up. She could have stayed quiet and left it to be someone else's problem, but
Right.
she hit the mainstream with it and is dealing with the repercussions, I'm sure, of the rest of her community that are for him or against him. You know, I'm sure it's not an easy position to be in, but good for her.
Glenn, I'm
Yeah.
curious, as the founder and coordinator of the largest AIDS bicycle ride in the country, Smart Ride, DaBaby made these comments just 12 miles from this studio at Hard Rock Stadium. Just 12 miles that we jokingly go is the gayest place on planet Earth. And he is so insultive to say, could you hold up your phones and light it up if you've been sucking dick in the parking lot and you've got AIDS and you're probably going to die in 2 or 3 weeks?
Lord.
I'm curious. What is your reaction?
Well, it makes my head explode because, you know, you're dealing with perceptions that people have about communities. And he's making anyone who's potentially HIV positive, you know, not even a victim, they're an aggressor. You know, is the way he's putting it, that where our goal is to spread it and bring more people into it and being disregard other people and their health and wellness, which is so not the case. And we live in a community and in a state where the largest new cases of infection are happening in the country. And it's happening, the largest group getting affected is 13 to 23-year-olds, and a lot of them are minorities. They're blacks, they're Latinos, they're people that are disenfranchised to begin with. So it's completely irresponsible for him to make this kind of comment and just get away with it.
And I'd like to point out a big irony. How many people in the audience were wearing masks? That, you know, they could die in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I want to add something to that. What boils me is that people actually sit there and listen to it and have no reaction.
Yeah.
People,
No comment.
Yeah.
yes, stay there and laugh at it and join it, whether they believe it or not.
You know,
but they don't stand up.
Glenn's gonna tee up our next news story in a moment. But one interesting thing, we have at Core News Tonight extensively covered DaBaby's comments. I happen to like DaBaby's music. You know, hello, newsflash, baby boomer can like DaBaby. But the situation here is he knew that he was going to be under attack and did an apology in Twitter. And it lasted for about 48 hours, and then he removed the apology. So he's indicated where his heart really is.
Yes.
We know who DaBaby is now.
Yes.
There's no coming back.
DaBaby, you're showing us who you are, and now we are seeing who you are. You suck.
Yeah, you suck.
That's
Literally
later.
in the parking lot
Yeah.
outside of
He's probably
It's crazy.
Right.
All right. So now we corrupt politics. Gay man threatened with stoning in Oregon City Council meeting. Watch this.
All right. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. I'm here before you today to talk to you about the Equity Task Force final report. Before I start on this presentation, though, I want to just talk about something that just happened in this chamber just at the start of the meeting. There was an individual who brought a rock to this meeting, proceeded to call me a sinner for being gay, accused me of spreading AIDS here in the community, accused me of blasphemy, and also of trying to say that I'm the second coming of Christ. And I just want to start the meeting off kind of pointing to you that just having a conversation, a simple conversation about racism in our community is gaining that level of violence, that threat of violence. So I would be remiss not to mention that's kind of the mentality I'm coming into this presentation with. Anyways, without further ado, let's begin.
I'm glad we're going to be able to talk about this story after. A black gay activist in Klamath Falls, Oregon, has gone public with threats of stoning received from Anchor citizen during a recent city council meeting. A shaken Eric Osterberg, the assistant city manager, told his colleagues that a local resident who remains anonymous threatened him. Before the meeting, Osterberg was slated to deliver a special presentation on an equity task force during the gathering. He said before the meeting, quote, "I just want to start the meeting off by pointing to you that just having a simple conversation about racism in our community is getting the level of violence and that threat of violence," end quote. He then shared that the assailant had told him, brought a rock to the meeting, and accused him of being a sinner for his sexuality and of spreading AIDS here in the community. The anonymous attacker also accused Osterberg of blasphemy for trying to say that I am the second coming of Christ. Klamath Falls Police Chief Robert Dettinger removed Osterberg's harasser from the scene, but declined to arrest him.
Picking up a rock and making the threat is a serious accusation.
Yes.
And he should have been arrested.
Absolutely.
Yes. And
Absolutely.
And he should have also, his name should be all over the news media with his big old face so that we can see and everybody can see who this bigot is,
This
so that he
anonymous
can get
person.
back what he is putting out there.
And
Right.
he's accusing him of being HIV positive and spreading it. I mean, it goes back to the story we just covered.
Exactly.
You know,
Yes.
it's irresponsible
Yeah.
And ignorant.
and ignorant
Very.
and putting out false information because, you know, a person who's HIV positive does not necessarily, or if they're taking their medications, cannot spread the disease to someone else. There's a 99.99% chance of not getting it if you have sex with someone who's has their HIV under control and taking their medication.
You know, Glenn, I just had a wave of ignorance flashing a yellow light over my head as you said the 99.99% effectiveness of the drugs of not preventing the spread of HIV. And I'm sitting here thinking about the vaccines for COVID-19, and it's the exact same thing. And that doesn't seem to matter either.
No.
Science doesn't seem to matter to a core of American people.
And when you preach to that group who already don't believe, you're just reinforcing their ignorance, if you will. And I'm sorry for saying ignorance, but you know, if the right information is out and you're spreading fear in a community that doesn't need to be fearful of someone with HIV and AIDS.
Yeah.
I mean, we're stepping aside from the rest of his conversation
Right.
and how wrong it was, but that part in particular, for me, running an HIV/AIDS organization is offensive.
Yes, so let me
Yeah.
take your uncomfortableness off the table. He's ignorant.
Yeah.
It's ignorant.
Yes,
All right.
no
All
doubt.
right.
Very ignorant. Okay. Let's queer up the world. Ghana. Court acquits 21 LGBT activists on charges of unlawful assembly. A court in Ghana on Thursday acquitted and released 21 LGBT activists who were arrested in late May in the southeast of the country for unlawful assembly after attending a conference about their activities. The 16 women and 5 men were arrested on May 20th in Ho, a city in the Volta region, while, quote, participating in a conference to promote their activities, end quote. Sex between men is forbidden in Ghana, and although the legal proceedings are rare, sexual minorities are marginalized and victims of harassment and assault. In recent months, the highly conservative and religious English-speaking West African country has faced a wave of homophobia. In February, a gay support center in Accra was closed by the authorities. A new bill to increase penalties and criminalize the promotion of the LGBT movement received its first reading in Parliament this week, despite international criticism of the text. You know, we're seeing this all over the world, and you know, this wave of homophobia is really scary. And, you know, make no mistake, the wave is big here in this country, too. But it's very scary.
You know, we've reported since the beginning of our first episode of Queer News Tonight was on January 6, 2020. And in 2020, we reported over and over and over again that Africa was the center of the world for homophobia. And West African countries especially were just terrible. The one thing that's different in this news about Ghana this week is Africa no longer holds that crown. It's Eastern Europe, Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Russia, and Ukraine. That region of the world, unbelievably, has become even more homophobic than Africa. Well, that is our queer headlines for today. So let's catch up on the LGBTQ plus news surrounding COVID-19 with our special segment called Quarantine Quickies.
Queer News Tonight has reported on coronavirus on every news broadcast since January 6, 2020.
Tonight, we report that as of today, more than 2,574,000 LGBTQ plus Americans have contracted COVID-19.
And Queer News remembers the more than 44,000 LGBTQ plus Americans that have died from coronavirus.
But the news is improving because as of today, more than 351 million vaccination doses have been administered in the United States.
That is our pandemic news for tonight. Next, we report on our partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine in supporting that partnership.
Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ plus religious live broadcast in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Watch this.
Federation. I'm the board chair of the Sunshine Cathedral.
Hi, I'm Tom Federation. I'm the treasurer of the Sunshine Cathedral Foundation board.
And Sunshine Cathedral is our queer church.
Finally, we thank Queer News Tonight's sponsor, Best Western I-95 Fort Lauderdale. This is the closest and best choice to the famous Wilton Drive, and our hosts and guests stay at this LGBTQ plus ally partner. We encourage you to stay here when visiting South Florida.
Well, next up, welcome to Queer News Tonight's Q&A on LGBTQ plus health and the pandemic. Since February of 2020, this segment has been unique in answering your LGBTQ plus community questions about our unique health needs. We are proud to have Queer News Tonight's health anchor, Dr. Howard Grossman.
He is an American pioneer in HIV/AIDS medical treatment and was the executive director of the American Academy of HIV Medicine. He is a nationally recognized medical expert and proud member of our LGBTQ plus community.
Well, good evening, Dr. Grossman. And before we move into some of the questions we have for you tonight, we want to look back over the last week and ask you about some of the thoughts of what you've seen in the health news for our community.
Well, if I could just make a gentle correction, Al, to what you were talking about a little while ago. You know, we talk about the fact that U equals U, undetectable equals untransmittable, and it's not 99.9%. There has never been a case of somebody undetectable infecting somebody who's negative. So we all need to stop being equivocal about this and say it is not going to happen. It has never happened. And people who are undetectable will not transmit the virus. I think that's part of the whole U equal U movement, is to stop us from these equivocations that maybe there's still a little, possibility, because it's never happened.
Yeah, okay.
And so there's a real why people need to be adherent to their medications and why we strive to help all of our patients get to that undetectable place.
Now we've
and I think liberating. We're positive.
I appreciate the observation. We're right there with you on it. I participated with you in the Florida LGBTQ plus Democratic Caucus on Saturday. You hosted an HIV panel of 40 years of HIV and AIDS. There's been slightly little news this week that has caught everybody's attention, having to do with the pandemic, and it doesn't have anything to do with vaccines or drugs or hospitalizations. It has to do with a person named Governor Ron DeSantis. What do you make of what we have watched in this last week?
Well, Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott from Texas, I think they're peas in a pod. You know, we're watching some Republicans like Asa Hutchinson, who is walking back the fact that he signed a law saying that, forbidding mask mandates. And we see the governor of Alabama as well, walking back some of these things and saying she was wrong to say some of the things she said. But we have people like DeSantis and Abbott digging their heels in. I love the fact that DeSantis is blaming the border, some kind of border crisis for the explosion, and there's no border next to Florida.
Exactly.
Howard, I did a post today in social media talking specifically about the need for vaccines and how political, and I basically said, well, you can withhold all of the money you want and all of the salaries you want, and we can withhold your seat in 2022. And somebody came in and posted, well, why don't you pay attention to the hundreds of thousands of people that are illegally crossing the border that are bringing COVID in, and that's really what's causing the COVID pandemic in America. How do you even deal with that medical misinformation?
Well, I mean, it's just stupidity. There is no way to deal with these trolls who want to repeat these memes that make no sense at all. And I think they just need to be shamed and pushed away. You can't. There's no rational way to deal with this stuff.
All right. Well, let's jump into some of the questions we have.
First of all, good to see you again, Dr. Grossman. Last time I saw you were having dinner with us.
I will. Best restaurant.
Thank you. More people have now died in Florida than DeSantis won the election by. Do you think there will be political change because of the pandemic?
It's really hard to say. I mean, certainly if they kill off enough of his supporters, that's gonna make a difference. But let's face it, the hospitals are full. People are dying. Memorial Hospital, has people in the cafeteria. I mean, all the hospitals in Florida are full, in Texas, in Alabama, in Arkansas, in all the states with governors who have failed to take proper precaution. And hospitalizations are up all over the place, but not like in the South.
Yeah, thank you.
Next
and
question.
will it have political repercussions? I don't know. I mean, Trump got elected despite every, horrible thing that came out about him. So some of these people seem immune. You have Rand Paul out there putting out videos this week about how children don't get COVID, and it's like a mild flu for them. When meanwhile, kids are being hospitalized and dying and getting infected in record numbers.
It was encouraging to see this week that several local schools have actually overruling what the governor has put into place and are forcing or adhering to masks in schools for young kids. Because I was actually approached yesterday by an LGBT parent whose kid's going back to school at the age of 6 and was in somewhat of a panic because they didn't know how to handle it. And then right after that, we found out that the court had ruled that DeSantis could not stop them from wearing masks. So.
Right. And the Dallas school board came out yesterday and said that they were going to require masks. And that's a huge school system, and I think he's not going to be far behind.
Yeah. Excellent. So let's go to our next question. The Lambda variant has now been seen in the U.S. How much should we worry? Is it targeted to LGBT people, this Lambda variant? Sorry, I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist that joke.
That's good. I like that. No, Lambda variant is actually showed up in Peru about a year ago, and now has become the dominant variant in South America. Started showing up in the U.S. Recently, and now has been reported, I think, in 44 states. It's felt that it might be more infectious. They haven't really compared it to Delta, but it's has that same increased infectivity. The question is how the vaccines will work. It seems that it's been tested against it seems that it's less effective against the Chinese vaccine, the CoronaVax that China is providing mostly to South America. But that's a vaccine that's in the same class as, say, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and the AstraZeneca vaccine. It's a killed virus vaccine. It's different from the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. And there was some evidence from NYU this week, I think, that that those vaccines are still effective against the Lambda variant. So, the question is still there, where it's just being investigated, and we'll see. But clearly it sounds like it's more infectious than stuff that came before.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Grossman, forecasts indicate the new COVID surge in Florida may not peak until September. Do you think Pride celebrations for this year should be postponed?
That's, it's a good question. I think that, when we talk about, for example, what happened in Provincetown over July 4th and Circuit Week, we have to remember that, number one, there were probably 60,000 people in Provincetown, and the total number of people infected was about 480. And that, about 74% of those people had already been vaccinated. But you were talking about people being crowded into small venues, closed in, sweating, dancing, people felt safe, and so they went back to old activities. Those are sort of, super spreader, it's an incubator for infection. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of Market Week in Chicago, which just ended recently. Another place where people were, packed in, sweating, dancing. I think those kind of venues probably are not a good idea right now. I think, a gay pride celebration where there's a parade and, perhaps people are out and people are outdoors and maybe not packed into places, that might be a safer thing. For example, I'm not too worried about going to the supermarket. I know people are wearing masks again in the market. But the market, how many people are in the market at one time? You're not packed in. It's a big open space. You think a vaccinated person is probably more safe in that kind of environment. People need to do what they feel is necessary to protect themselves. But I think with the vaccine, we're pretty safe in those kind of spaces.
All right. Well, that is tonight's Queer News Tonight's Q&A on LGBTQ plus health and the pandemic. We're here every Tuesday with Dr. Howard Grossman to answer your questions. Do you need medical assistance? Now, we're LGBT, so of course we do. We encourage you to contact Dr. Howard Grossman here in Wilton Manors and serving all across South Florida. Thank you again, Howard, for being with us tonight.
Thank you all.
Well, we finished tonight's Queer News headlines with what we call LGBTQ plus flash news.
LGBTQ plus flash news. Snickers apologizes for wildly homophobic commercial. Candy bar Snickers has issued an apology following a new ad in Spain, understandably perceived as homophobic. Yahoo News reports that while Snickers has pulled the ad from broadcast, it continues to circulate on social media. The commercial in question shows an effeminate man, played by Spanish blogger Ales Gibaja, at the beach with a friend and ordering sexy orange juice with vitamins A, B, and C. The waiter and the friend exchange disgusted, confused looks before the waiter presents the femme man with a Snickers ice cream bar. The femme man takes one bite and magically transforms into a more masculine, bearded, handsome man. Watch this.
Entonces sería un agua con gas del tiempo, con una rodaja de limón y un sexy zumo de naranja.
Con vitaminas A, B y C. Abracitos, besitos, muac y caricias around the world.
Anda, toma un helado Snickers. Mejor.
Mejor.
Wow.
I can't believe the plethora of stereotypes that I just watched.
Yeah, I think it's just nuts.
Nuts, Snickers.
Yeah.
I think that it's offensive, but I will not stop eating Snickers bars because I don't think their intention was to really put that message out. Some of the commercials have been very funny.
I'm curious,
that
how
they've
do you
done.
feel about Chick-fil-A?
So that's a whole different story. And I almost brought that up before when we were talking about other things, but yeah, no, Chick-fil-A is completely different.
Right.
They've got more of a hate agenda. I don't believe Snickers is
Yeah,
out to
yeah.
get any
Well,
of
I
that.
think they should name the bar Homophobia.
Homophobia.
I mean, people don't make these kind of mistakes. Somebody knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
All right, Glenn, we'll do another flash news.
Oh, it's me again. I love when that happens and I'm not paying attention. LGBTQ plus flash news. How Ron Amato shot the solitary beauty of men in Provincetown's wild. For a photographer who makes images of people, creating work during a global pandemic was challenging. He said, quote, "When I returned to Provincetown, Mass in January 2021, I was ready to experience the town in a different way. Still in the middle of the pandemic restrictions, I knew shooting indoors was off limits, while braving the outdoors in winter would be challenging. But I was up for it, if I could only find models who were as well. I think we were all aching for a creative outlet, so the models braved Provincetown in January for the sake of art."
Wow. I think it's good they're not showing the full nudity in January. That would be quite embarrassing.
I'm very happy that Queer News Tonight embraces gay cultural experiences in our photography. Provincetown in January might be slightly better in COVID-19 than Provincetown 4th of July.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure.
I say that his work was wildly scrumptious. Those were nice pictures.
Yes, they were. And I agree with Cindy on her statement. I'm glad that they didn't show full frontal in that icy condition.
Oh.
Yes.
Was that a size joke?
That was a size joke, and I didn't even make it about me this time. I was
right.
talking about other people,
Okay,
but
got it. LGBTQ plus flash news. Johnny Weir's outfit steals the show at the Tokyo Olympic closing ceremony. Figure skaters Johnny Weir and Tara Lipinski, longtime fixtures of the Winter Olympic Games, who returned to their post as NBC commentators for the Tokyo Games, calling in their hotel to chat about athlete fashion over the last few weeks. For Sunday's closing ceremony, however, the duo, who joked they brought about 22 suitcases between them, saw a big payoff for all their sartorial planning. Weir wore a sheer draping Froloff jacket, LaPont pants, and AGL boots, which he documented on his Instagram, and styled his hair in his typical bouffant, pinning a hair accessory displaying a metallic version of the Olympic rings to the side.
I love this guy. I think he is just so brave and so unique and so original, and I celebrate every step that he takes in his fashion-forward thinking and expression.
you wouldn't catch me dead in that outfit. I can't even pronounce some of the things that you said. Al, I could probably see you maybe in those shoes, but no, I'll pass on that.
Yeah.
I also love it. I mean, I think he's such a lovable character that the entire world celebrates.
Yes.
I watched the closing ceremonies, and when he came on and I saw what he was wearing, it literally pulled the breath out of my lungs.
Absolutely.
I was shocked that that was the representation at NBC. This was a national broadcast, and he was doing that. And as it went on, he just slayed it.
Yes.
Congratulations. You represented our community beautifully.
Yes. Thank you, Weir. LGBTQ plus flash news. Trans women are women, sir. Trans councilman confronts bigoted store owner in viral video. Watch this.
For nearly 25 years, Don Suker has been known as the wacky owner of the Star Wars memorabilia store here in Aberdeen. But a transgender councilwoman says he's a bigot who went to the dark side on her.
You are nuts. You're not a woman. You don't look like a woman. You don't act like a woman.
The confrontation started inside.
Trans women are women. Get a trans women are women.
And spilled into the street.
You are not a chick.
Aberdeen Councilwoman Tiesa Meskis confronted owner Don Suker about a sign he posted in his store saying, if you are born with a slang for a male body part, you are not a chick.
What he wrote there was so demeaning and so dismissive of who I am and who any trans woman is.
Meskis, a trans woman, says she knows Suker has the right to say what he wants.
You're nuts. You need to back off now. No, you do.
But she wanted to tell him to his face it was hurtful.
I would really like them to open their eyes and their heart and see that, you know, we are people, we are who.
In a video from August 5th, City Councilwoman Tiesa Meskis is seen confronting a shop owner in Aberdeen, Washington about a transphobic sign in the store, which you just witnessed. The store was identified as Suker and Sons Staff Star Wars Shop, except I will not call him Suker. I'm going to continue calling him Sucker. According to local news station King 5, and the sign reads, if you are born with a dick, you are not a chick. Their verbal altercation continued outside Sucker's store as well, where a passerby voiced her support for Meskis and said Sucker had lost her business. In an interview with King 5, Sucker referenced his right to free speech and said that he doesn't care that his sign is hurtful.
I love the name of his store. I think it is so appropriate. I think you should definitely continue to call it Sucker. Kudos to her for standing up for her rights and getting on the news and making this an issue, because it needs to be. There's no excuse for that kind of behavior.
And, you know, this horrible homophobia and transphobia is just blowing up like we haven't seen in years, and it is hurtful, and so many people don't care that they hurt other people, and that's really sad.
It took me a few minutes to realize that that broadcast on the street and the sidewalk in front of the store wasn't Tucker Carlson Tonight. I really thought it might have been.
I think that he was awfully brave as this little menial thing to stand before this monumentous woman and say the things that he said. I think she should have chomped him.
I'm so glad she didn't.
Yeah.
I kept thinking, oh, please
don't lose it. Don't lose it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share this news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast in the many groups you are a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and friends.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television news in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. And that is the passion of the Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Glen Weinzimer, Aiyana Angeni Gonzales, and Cindy Brown, we will see you daily at 8 p.m.
Good night.
Good night. LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.